You're now listening to Dirty Feet,
a brand new podcast on No More Radio.
Bonjour, oui, vous êtes sur les ondes des pieds sales, aka
Dirty Feet podcast on No More Radio. I'm Allison Burns.
I'm JD Papillon.
Oh, I'm Jen Doan.
The
Donor. I'm the donor.
This is Joanie on No More Radio.
Stay tuned for
dance,
circus,
burlesque,
tango,
movement,
salsa, whatever it is, we're gonna move you. Happy 2013, everybody. Everybody in studio and everybody listening. You are listening to Dirty Feet on No More Radio. And this is our first week back since our holiday vacation. I hope your holidays went really well. I think we all had a good time.
It's the holidays. It's relaxing. It feels good.
That's right. And we're back with more energy, ready to rock this show even better than we rocked it already in the last 2 months that we've been operating. We've been doing this for 2 months, which is so awesome. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. So let's get into the show today. A little bit later, we're going to be talking to a couple of very talented ladies from La Otra Orilla, a flamenco contemporary dance group that's presenting a work as part of the Danse Danse season at the Cinquième Salle Place des Arts a little later in the month. We're going to start off with catching up with a few things that we saw since we last talked to you. Jojo, just recently, you saw something as part of the Wildside Festival, and the Wildside Festival is put on by the Centaur Theatre, and it's actually a theater festival, but there was one piece in the 6 series of shows that they were presenting this year that was appropriate for us as a movement-based performing arts interested podcast to talk about.
Yes, very much so. It was a day in the life of Miss Hiccup. From her name is Yanomi.
Yes.
I believe Yanomi Shoshens, if I'm saying that right.
I believe the company name is Shoshin.
That's it.
And
yeah, Yanomi is the performer,
the
solo performer, which I think it was her first solo show that she did. But she's been doing it for a while and all over the States, I believe, and even the world. She's from Japan. Yes, I think she actually just flew in from Japan on the day of her performance or something. That's what the artistic director of Centaur was saying, Roy, right before. So I think that's pretty awesome because she performed very, very well. So a day in the life of Miss Hiccup. There's no text. There's no words. It's all kind of mime and gestures and dance, and I mean it's a character. Miss Hiccup is an interesting character, very colorful, as you may see on the pictures if you find her on Facebook, or if you just go on the Centaur Theatre webpage. It's a very funny show. It's smart funny. It's the timing that she has for all the punches, the jokes. All her punches are just very tight. And anyways, it's mentioned in the review on Bloody Underrated, so you should definitely read that and go see the show. There's still a few dates left.
Thank you, Jojo. And JD, there's a couple shows that you've seen which are no longer playing, unfortunately, but you've also reviewed one of them.
Yeah, a few months ago we recorded an episode about burlesque, which was launched online around Christmas time. So if you haven't listened to it, you should go listen to it because those ladies are fantastic. And since then, I've been going to see a lot of burlesque shows. Before the holidays, I went to see Holidayland, which was organized by Cherry Typhoon at Théâtre Sainte-Catherine. And I did a review of that, which is on Bloody Underrated. So if you're interested, go read it. It was a really fun show. And yesterday, on Sunday, I went to see the Blood Ballet Cabaret at Le Belmont. And it was my first time actually going to see a Blood Ballet Cabaret show, and it was fantastic. It was really a good show, great performers. Miss Bloody Marianne, who's the organizer and also performer, it was my first time seeing her, and she's just mind-blowing, fantastic. I'm not doing a review of that show, but just quickly, Blood Ballet Cabaret is happening quite often, I think a year. So if you haven't seen them, I strongly encourage you to go check it out.
Nice. So we've covered physical theater, burlesque, and now we're on to our flamenco dancing.
Today we're talking with Myriam Allard, who's the choreographer for La Otra Orilla, and Myriam Allard Aurélie Brunelle, who's a dancer for La Otra Orilla. Hello, ladies. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks.
Good, thanks.
La Otra Orilla, for people who don't know, is a flamenco influenced dance company, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Could you tell us about, but you're presenting soon as part of Danse Danse at La Place des Arts. It's interesting to see flamenco being presented in a company such as Danse Danse. Could you tell us a bit about the company and how you infuse flamenco in dance?
La Otra Orilla means the other shore. We're a Montreal-based company, and we founded the company in 2006 with the co-director Eddie Graja. So Eddie and I work. We actually are based training. All our training is in flamenco. Eddie has also done theater, so and he really likes cinema. So he has a big influence on the visual aesthetic of the work we've been doing, especially since our third production. Then we did El Doce and HomoBLABLAtus. Every time we're pushing the boundaries further. But it's important to know that, like, my training is only in flamenco. I don't have training in anything else. So for me, sometimes we don't even use flamenco music. We won't use the traditional costumes. But for me, it still is flamenco somehow, even if it's very far visually from what we expect of flamenco. And so we work, our different productions, we work with different artists. This time we're working with Aurélie Brunelle and Miguel Medina, and many other artists also are working with us on this new piece. And what we've been doing ultimately is really working in a theatrical way. So in traditional flamenco, the musicians will be sitting in the background and the dancers will be evolving in front. In our work, in our most recent works, the static of the musicians that are not moving, we've broken that. So the musicians are as much part of the movement as the dancers, and we've been using video. So the video is very important in our work. Also, it gives a lot of context, and it brings a lot to the piece to help develop the theme, really. And we've pushed boundaries also. We haven't limited ourselves to using to working with flamenco music. In El Doce, our previous work, there was only one piece that was in flamenco. This work, it's completely crazy. So there's much more that is in flamenco. We're going further, and for me, it's the idea is really to be free and just not say, oh, is this flamenco? Is this not flamenco? I don't really care anymore at this point.
Does that mean you're not labeling it as contemporary flamenco, but rather just leaving it open?
Yeah, exactly. We're trying. I mean, people need to know what they're going to see. And Eddie and I have a bit of a problem with labels because what does it mean in the end? It's a big question for me. What is contemporary flamenco? I don't even know what that is. If it helps, we can label ourselves that way. But for me, it doesn't mean that much. For us, it's more a question of just doing live art. In French, you say les arts de la scène. And there's video. There's different types of music. It's dance. It's many things. I prefer the Asian way, really, of defining live arts. They don't separate everything. A dancer is also an actor, and we try to work in that direction, really.
And actually, to go back to flamenco and define it a bit more for people who might not have seen performances of flamenco, because in Quebec, it's not that well known, flamenco, for the most part. Could you describe to us, like, the essence of flamenco a bit, like the movement, where it comes from? Just explain it a bit to our audience.
Well, flamenco is, first of all, is a music. It's a singing. Like, the root of flamenco is the singing. The gypsies that started in southern Spain, it was people who didn't have money, not only gypsies, but people who would work the fields, really. So it comes from a very poor section, if I can use that word, of that country. Andalusia was very poor, and it's first of all a singing and a music, and it has had many influences: Arab, Jewish, of course, the traditional Spanish, classical Spanish music, and folklore. So it's flamenco, and it is a big mix at the base. So it's interesting sometimes to hear people say, is this pure flamenco? That word doesn't make much sense to me, because flamenco in its roots isn't really pure somehow, you know. But anyhow, so it's a mix of all that culture, a mix that was in Andalusia at that point, with the folklore espagnol, and so you can recognize it. Traditional flamenco, you recognize it in the music, first of all, in the lines. There's a lot of fire, there's a lot of strength in flamenco. It's very masculine, and also women will dance in a very feminine way, but there's a lot of strength to it. So there's something very masculine, even if it's a woman dancing, I find. And there's all those lines that are very cut. It's not so round, traditionally. Anyhow,
it's also a percussive dance,
yes, of course,
which probably has a lot of influence on how you create. Do you feel that with your approach, with your multidisciplinary approach to creation, you ever move away from that? The link between the musicality and the dance, do you feel that you ever move away from those percussive roots and try to bring movement without having to be restrained by keeping the rhythm?
Mm-hmm. Well, in HomoBLABLAtus, and I'm thinking of one piece we do with Aurélie, we do actually, it's at least percussively, but the link to the music, even if it's not rhythmical, is still there. There's always that link somehow, and even in this piece there's one tableau that is done on a conversation, but we're still keeping the rhythm of the conversation. So that link is pretty much still there, I would say, yeah.
And Aurélie, for you, is it the first time that you're performing? It's the first time you're performing for Myriam as part of Otra Orilla. Is it your first professional experience?
As part of a contemporary flamenco, I would say. I've done some show like on Place des Arts, and always dancing as a flamenco dancer for accompanying a musician, so I've done a lot of work like this, but as an interpret of a vision of an artist is the first time I dedicate myself, and it's quite a challenge.
And you come first from flamenco, a flamenco background too, but you've done other types of dance.
Yes, I'm doing my baccalaureate at Concordia in contemporary dance, and I've done some African dance as well, hip hop. I've done a lot of training on many dances, but flamenco is my main training, as I pursue since 12 years. I'm dedicated myself.
And how do you feel in this multidisciplinary environment that Myriam is building? Do you feel that these other tools that you've acquired in other types of dance are coming in handy to represent her vision? Yes,
because it helped me be more open to what she's asking of me, and Eddie as well. But I would say the main challenge is the way that there's no the typical flamenco emotion. So for me, I really rely on music in my dancing, flamenco dancing. So for me, it's a kind of a challenge to find all the physicality, but without the emotion coming from the music. So it's quite of a technical challenge.
And how is this missing here from your usual experience? This emotion that you're talking about, how is it not as present as it usually is when you do flamenco?
Because flamenco is really about the music. So there's typical going to be a dance which is really dramatic or a soleá, and it's kind of just the music. It puts you in it puts me in a physical environment, emotion. So we're gonna, because we're doing a lot of work without the typical music, we're doing with another soundtrack or environment. So to find this physical emotion without the voice that is usually there, that puts me right into the mood that I need to be. So it's kind of just find the physical emotion, everything in my body without the music that I'm used to it. That's the main challenge.
So the music, because Myriam, you mentioned that you use live musicians and you bring them in much more than they usually do in your other shows. So what's the link between pre-recorded music, live musicians? Like, how do you juggle all of that?
It's been quite of a challenge. It's the first time we're working with so much recorded music. El Doce, there was only one piece that was recorded. It's a big challenge. It's very interesting though because it's different. So for us, the challenge is mainly to make a link within the show so that it doesn't go all over the place, although there are quite many different artists that are participating to this. But the theme of the show, HomoBLABLAtus, is about too much, is about talking too much noise, too much sound, too much images. So it fits the theme of this show perfectly well.
A sort of cacophony in a way?
Yes, yeah, somehow. But I mean, some pieces are also very soft. There's a big vulnerability that comes out of them also. So I mean, it's not a cacophony the whole time, you know. But there is a bit of that. It's very eclectic. It's very different from one piece to the next. You know, there's not a narrative that goes, and it's not linear at all. It's very much, it goes up and down and up and down. It's very different from everything we've done up to now.
And could you tell us a bit about the other pieces you've done? Like, how did you first get into creating works that are not part of the traditional flamenco scene, and how that evolved into this show that you're now presenting at Place des Arts?
Well, when we first arrived, Eddie and I did 2 productions that were very much traditional flamenco, to my eyes anyway. But strangely enough, people who came to see it would say, "Oh, that's contemporary. Your movement is very contemporary." And to me, that was completely astonishing because it was, you know, I worked in tablaos in Spain, and it was really just very much what I would be doing there, except that I didn't wear the traditional clothing because I just don't feel I belong in that sort of disguise somehow. So I don't know. I think somehow it sort of have opened up a window there. People saying it's so different. What you're doing is so different from what we see here. And I think just naturally we just, you know, I think I always felt in Spain. I always felt a bit like fake, you know, when I was putting that flower in, when I was wearing those polka dots. It just didn't really feel right. And being in Montreal for me really helped me to just let go of all what flamenco should be and just say, okay, yes, flamenco should be this and this and that, but who am I and what can I express through flamenco, whether it is with a mini skirt or with a very long skirt with polka dots on. But anyhow, our first opportunity really was at Tangente in 2008. We presented Mu. And just the fact that we were at Tangente, we felt it was an opening to just try something very different. And Eddie has always, as I said, he worked in theater and he loves cinema. And so for him it was a big chance to just say, you know, let's try to put something together that is very, very different. So Mu was a big challenge for me. There was just one musician, Eddie, and myself, and it was about metamorphose. So it was 3 different states, and you know, one was completely on the floor, the other one I had, my arms were at the back so I couldn't use them anyhow. So it was 3 very different movements, but it was still very much linked to the flamenco music at that point. So that was at Tangente. And from there, Danse Danse actually came up to us, and they saw us at Tangente, and then they saw us in the traditional form. And they offered us a carte blanche for the 2010 year, which was amazing for us. And as Danse Danse is a contemporary dance programmation, well, we felt it was again an opportunity to develop that aesthetic that we had started mainly with Mu. So we presented El Doce, which is a work with 4 musicians and myself on stage. And again, we started video then. And that's where we started really having the musicians moving around and the video taking a lot of place to bring context, to bring in the narrative and for the moods also. But again, El Doce was very much flamenco because all the tableaux were flamenco music, except for one, which was Danse Danse, Jacques Brel. But it was going away from that, you know, very coded traditional flamenco. And when I say coded, for me, it's really not something that's negative. I love traditional flamenco, and I might go back to it in my next production. We haven't decided to do this very different work because we dislike traditional flamenco. It's just we want to feel very free in what we do, and we don't want to feel any pressure on you have to do this this way, things this way or another way. We just want to, do what we feel like in the moment.
El Doce was my first introduction to your company, and at the time I felt that this was something that I hadn't experienced before. Since then I've seen other versions of contemporary flamenco. I'm sure you have a better concept of what the scene is like right now in terms of that. Are there a lot of people experimenting with this? Is that a Montreal specific thing? Is that happening elsewhere in the world?
I think it's happening in many different places in the world. In Spain, quite a bit. Of course, there's Israel Galvan, which is a big influence of mine, and I think obviously of Aurélie's too. He's an amazing artist. I had the opportunity to work with him, and he's a very big influence for me. And again, Israel, he'll just say, for him, it's flamenco, whatever he does, even if he's dancing on heavy metal, it's flamenco because that's what his training is and that's who he is. Because flamenco somehow is more about a state of being more than anything else somehow, Sometimes I go see shows, a humor show I went to see, and for me, the only thing that came out was ole because it was so grounded. What was happening for me was flamenco somehow, It's very much a way of being. Anyhow, so there is Israel Galvan, there's Rocío Molina, there's many great artists in Spain. And outside of Spain, I don't know the scene that much. Here in Montreal, there's Ray Brohe that's doing crazy work also. And I've, through Facebook and so on, I've seen things. In Barcelona, there's a festival that Juan Carlos Lerida directs, and he's bringing people from all around the world that are doing different things, and that for them is flamenco. That for them is just, that's their way of expressing themselves through flamenco.
I saw a piece, Last Fringe by Sarah Brassard, 4KG, and I think she also did it at 303 through a residency. So you've seen it, or you're aware of it?
Yeah, Sarah, of course, she was in the mentorship we did.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. For me, that work really broke down the elements of flamenco, and I felt like I understood it a lot more, as you were just saying about the feeling of it, just kind of the harshness, the strength, and all that. So even when she was being round, she was still doing flamenco because she was still embodying that emotion.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
So was it the first time working with another dancer, an extra dancer, in this show?
I've worked in Denominación de Origen Descontrolado, or a second production. I worked with Natasha Massicotte, but that was very much traditional flamenco, so she had a solo. And we did a duet, which wasn't a duet in the traditional way, in the sense that usually in more classical flamenco, you have something like a corps de ballet, which is, if you do a duet, people are doing the same thing. And with Natasha, I worked a duet that was, we were not doing the same thing the whole time. So we were responding to one another, and sometimes we were just doing different things at the same time. So it was already more contemporary at that point. But for a full show, yes, this is the first time I've been working with another dancer, and it's a fantastic, it's a great opportunity. I'm really happy that life brought us there, because it wasn't the first idea, but things just moved forward, and we brought Aurélie in the work.
Because would you say that flamenco often uses one dancer or one main dancer that you see all the time on stage? So how do you show movement, or how do you bring two people on stage, or three or four eventually, who knows, and how would you bring that in your work?
That's the thing with traditional flamenco. It's such a personal interpretation of music that it's very hard to be two doing that at the same time, because you don't feel the music the same way. You can't. That's just not possible. Flamenco in the traditional form is an expression of oneself, so two people are not the same. So in a more traditional context, that's just not possible, except in the fin de fiesta, which is the end of the show, where we're just improvising and doing, silly things or whatever. It's just more fun than you can. But in a full solo, you can't really do that. So So yeah, I think for me anyways, the only way to do that is to break it, like to make it more contemporary, more, just like in contemporary dance, you have people you have to be watching in more than one space of the stage because there are different things happening. And somehow for a traditional flamenco, that's not how it works. You just look at one person, or if it's two person, but they're doing the same thing. So yeah, it's really interesting for me, and I eventually I would like to work on group pieces somehow, but it's a big challenge because especially this time around I'm dancing in it also, and we're doing pieces together, so it's a big challenge for me to be in and out. I think sometimes I'm saying maybe next piece I should be completely just as choreographer, just to be able to really watch the visuals and see what it's giving or not,
Take a step back, yeah. What about you, Aurélie? How is it to be dancing with Myriam? I guess if you've trained as a flamenco dancer, then you've also been dancing on your own, maybe, or just performing by yourself.
Yes,
yeah.
I think it's to accept that our expression is different, but Myriam is a big. It's a big influence on me. Like Myriam, like her style, when she came to Montreal, she was in Spain and I knew her in Montreal, but I was like, oh my God. And she came back to Montreal to teach. So I was taking her classes. So she's my teacher as well. That's how we begin our relation. So, for me it was a big step to dance with her on stage. So for me it was just like a big, opportunity and a big, chance for me. So, to dance à côté de Myriam et tout. Alors ça m'a fait quoi
Ça te fait grandir, c'est
ça
sûr,
me fait grandir,
en tant qu'artiste
voilà.
du flamenco. Hein.
Oui, voilà, parce que disons Myriam, comment je peux dire, c'est qu'elle a une influence flamenco. Elle est flamenco, mais elle est très contemporaine dans le style qu'elle va. Le mouvement va sortir de l'intérieur, et parce que souvent dans le flamenco c'est très la forme. Comment je le vois, ça vient de l'intérieur, mais il y a beaucoup de formes qu'il faut atteindre. Puis Myriam, son mouvement est vraiment de l'intérieur et tout. Alors pour moi, c'est super contemporain. Et voilà. Puis alors c'est un grand pas de partager la scène avec une artiste comme ça.
Mm-hmm.
Voilà.
And could you tell us a bit about the musicians? Because it would have been interesting to have musicians today with us because of how closely linked flamenco is to the music. Mm-hmm. So could you tell us about the musicians you got? What are their backgrounds? Do they come mostly from flamenco background? Do some of them come from different types of music backgrounds?
So on stage we have Eddie Graja, who is singing and doing palmas, and Miguel Medina, who is a percussionist. Eddie's background in singing is he did a bit of classical music to start with, but he's only done flamenco, mostly like myself. And Miguel is a percussionist. I think it's world music. Like he's from Mexico, and his training, he does a lot of different types of music, and he plays in Concordia. He plays for a lot of contemporary dance artists also. And then Caroline Planté composed one guitar piece, and she's playing in it also. So her training is flamenco. And José Sanchez, who's from France, is also a flamenco guitarist. So they both are very much, their training is flamenco mainly. Of course, José and Caroline, they're like myself and Eddie. I think they're very much influenced by everything, every kind of music that comes, that they hear, They're not only doing flamenco and obsessed with it sounding so flamenco. They're very open-minded, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be working on this project. And I think for this project, that's the team we have, yeah.
And you mentioned palmas as part of what Eddie does, and palmas is hand clapping, not to be reductive, but could you tell us a bit about that? Because I think that every dancer learns how to do palmas too.
And Aurélie in this piece is also doing palmas, Miguel also, and Eddie. Yeah, palmas, it's the hand clapping, it's all the rhythms of flamenco, and of course, like even before there was guitar in flamenco, there was the first thing that accompanied flamenco was the hand clapping. So, and then came the guitar, and then came the cajon and the percussions. The percussions actually come from South America. They don't even come from Spain. So, Las Palmas is what first accompanied flamenco. It's essential to any flamenco dancer or artist to know how to work them.
And what's the link between like the way you use your hands and the way you're going to use your feet when you're dancing? Is it like always on the same beat, or do you alternate beats between what's happening in the upper body and the lower body?
You alternate. It's just playing around, and the more you're able to isolate parts of your body, the more interesting things you can do. I mean, if your head can be turning in a different directions than your hands, and your your feet can be doing something else, then it's just amazing because it's so rich, you know. Obviously, that takes a lot of time. It's like, you know, it's your vocabulary. So your technique is your vocabulary. So the more you're agile, the more you have, and you dominate. I wouldn't say that. You master it. The freer you are, really. You know, Israel will even, you know, his teeth will be at compass in a different way. You know, I mean, and that's where you're aiming. That's what you're aiming. You're always, and if you want everything to go, you know, at the same time, you also can, obviously. But it's to be able to play with all those different aspects of your body that is amazing, yeah.
You keep referring to in the structure of the work that you do, having cinematic influences. And to me, what that means is kind of a big focus on the setting, the costuming, the lights, and a particular drawing of the eye around the stage. What does it mean for you? Does it mean that? Does it mean more than that?
It's very much that, and that's very much Eddie. I mean, obviously we work together, so I don't like to always separate what we do. But that he's influenced me. He's brought me to see more cinema and more, you know, different cinema than what we see in the regular cinemas. We were living in Paris at one point, and Paris is the city for cinema. So anyhow, yeah, that's very much a shared vision, and it's. Yeah, the costumes are important. The lights also very much, because as soon as you have video, the lights have to be very different. And I mean, HomoBLABLAtus and ELDOSE, as a spectator, you have to just sit and let go. It's not a show where you're going to necessarily know when to applaud, know when to say ole. And I think it's not a show you can leave halfway through and understand. It's a show you need to see from start to end, and that's how you'll get the feel of that piece. And in that way, it's very much like a film somehow. You know, it's like c'est comme un voyage, and you have to go through every single tableau to understand it.
And how does the setting where the show takes place influence your creation? Do you feel that performing in cafes, because sometimes flamenco can be performed in cafes, smaller theaters, do you feel that performing at Cinquième Salle for the show? How do you feel like with the relationship to the audience being further away from you, the stage being bigger? How do you feel that that's influenced the creation of the piece?
Very much. Well, Cinquième Salle is still very small, and our work, we really prefer small stages. And with ELDOSE, we toured it quite a bit, and I really prefer theater houses that fit maybe 300 people, not much more than that, because I feel the closeness with the audience for me is still very important. Yeah, it's completely different. I mean, you know, you could never do what we're doing in a cafe. It's just not possible. At least part of it, anyways. You know, because some pieces are more flamenco, like they're more typical, and those I think you could. But a lot of it is so visual. It's so big in the movement that you need that space. So yeah, it's a big influence. I wouldn't say necessarily linked to the theater La Cinquième Salle, but in a bigger theater for sure. Yeah.
And how about the front? Do you use a front normally? Est-ce qu'il y a un côté frontal avec l'audience, or usually is the audience more in a circle around you?
We were trying to break that front, because flamenco is very frontal, very much so, and we're trying to break that more and more. Just because I think our backs can dance also, our backs can express, a profile can express a lot also. But the audience is still at l'italienne. We've never tried yet with audience all the way around. But within the choreography, you know, sometimes we're completely to the sides or whatever. It's much more circular than frontal, yeah.
And how do you bring that now into the piece? This moving away from a frontal attitude, I guess.
That's a good question. I just decided somehow that you know, flamenco is very linear, and it's because it comes from, you know, family circles, very small spaces, in a restaurant, in a cafe, in a family setting, really. It was always a very limited way of dancing physically. And I mean, even Andalusian Spaniards are usually quite short, you know. It's funny, but it's true, you know. So, yeah, I think it's just when you're bringing a piece to a bigger stage, you just have no other choice than just opening to something that fills that space. Because if you're just going back and forth from Côté Jardin to Côté Cour, then it's flat somehow, you know. You need to use that whole space to take advantage of the fact that you are in such a big space. And I think the visuals, the videos, and we have a big décor, we have a big cube in this show. Obviously, they really influence the way we're working the movement.
And I would say also that you use like multiple things going on at the same time. And for me, like, I see it like it breaks the like frontal, like one action, and there's multiple things that is going on. So I think it brings like the profondeur of the space.
I've seen a video, I think it might be from your previous show, where you were using the delay thing with with video, when you kind of you cross the stage and then you see on the video that you cross the stage, right, the delayed reaction. Are you using that for this show? Because it's such an interesting kind of a medium, I guess, to use.
Yeah, I think we're using it once, but in a different way.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was rétro projection right, for El Dossier, and now we're front projections. Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's just a different way to, like the cube you're using. I guess it brings a 3D, you know, like a big dimension, which as an audience, you kind of see something coming out of the stage, and then how do you dance flamenco around on it, jumping from it? Oh, am I going too far? Well, I can't wait to see that, actually.
I was wondering, actually, because of the roots of flamenco, where it comes from very much quote-unquote lower class, and like finding a form of self-expression. Do you feel that this hierarchy of, or like there's a class system that's still present in your creation because of that? Or do you feel that it's transcended that? Do you still feel that it's a folk dance in a way, and that this will be seen in the type of approach you take?
When I first arrived in Montreal, for me that was a bit of a battle, because I felt that, yes, the contemporary milieu of dance looked up on us. But I think somehow that it's very much our responsibility as flamenco artists to just, not care about that, because it's not true, it's not part of reality then. There's not an hierarchy, it's just dance, it's just art, Yeah, I try not to go there anymore, because I think it's useless somehow. It's just, for me, it feels like I'm defending myself about something and something I really love. Like, I really love traditional flamenco. For me, I'm not doing more interesting or better work than what traditional flamenco is. I love it also. And as I said earlier, I might go back to it for the next show, because this show's so, there's so much to think about. I'm like, let's do something unplugged next time, I think that's also, it's more a question for people who are outside of Spain somehow, because obviously for non-Spaniards, it's folklore, right? It's something that comes from another country. But for me, I really tried to compare it to something like jazz, for example. Jazz at first was, jazz and blues, it was really Black American, there was nobody else who could do that. And today you have Norwegian people who are doing excellent jazz. So for me, flamenco is universal. It's I've seen Japanese artists that are amazing, so it's just it's more of about a way to express yourself. It's more about art. And I've seen Spaniards that suck in flamenco and Japanese that are really great. So
And do you feel that it influences the themes that you approach in your creation? Like, do you feel that there's this kind of humanistic approach to your creation, where you try to look at the little people, or trying to really like focus on the humanity?
I think Eddie and I are very humanist. So I think we chose flamenco because flamenco came to us, or whatever. I mean, I think we're doing flamenco because We feel that way. That's our vision of life, really. It's more a way of being than something we thought about, that we decided.
Le fait que le flamenco vienne du peuple,
oui.
Vraiment, que ça soit pas quelque chose qui a été bâti avec des idées très philosophiques, quoi que ce soit. Oui. C'est ça, mais que ce soit vraiment une forme d'expression. Tu mentionnais le feu tantôt, c'est quelque chose qui vient vraiment
des tripes.
Des tripes, exactement. Et qui a permis à un peuple, justement, de s'exprimer alors qu'il sentait peut-être qu'il n'y avait pas l'opportunité.
Oui.
Est-ce que tu sens qu'il y a une certaine conscience sociale, parce que ça vient un peu de cette approche-là de la conscience sociale, je trouve, qui va affecter tes thèmes? Est-ce que tu essaies de faire de quoi qui va avoir une conscience sociale dans ton travail?
Non, on n'est pas des donneurs de leçons, on n'est pas dans la politique, non, pas du tout. On est plus dans la poésie.
Mm-hmm.
On est plus dans l'humanité, comme tu disais tout à l'heure. On est plus dans... Eddie et moi, on est plus des gens qui aiment les belles choses, qui aiment partir, un peu oublier. Puis c'est comique parce que HomoBLABLAtus, c'est vraiment parti d'un ras-le-bol, justement, de choses qui sont pas bonnes, qu'on a vues, des mots qui veulent plus rien dire, des images qui veulent plus rien dire parce qu'il y en a trop, de mauvaise qualité. Et d'une certaine façon, au début, on s'est dit, on va faire ça en silence. On va faire ça avec rien. On va partir du silence. Et puis, finalement, on est allé vers quelque chose qui est dans la surabondance aussi, un peu pour montrer notre ras-le-bol. Mais voilà, je pense que c'est plus parce qu'on est des gens qui aimons les belles choses, qui aimons les choses bien faites et qui aimons les êtres humains aussi. On n'est pas dans le truc trash, on n'est pas dans la grosse critique horrible. C'est plus drôle qu'autre chose pour moi, ce spectacle-là.
You said way back when about you've been training exclusively in flamenco, but I'm sure you're influenced by other artists in different genres. Can you speak a bit to that? And would any of that be informative to an audience member, or?
Strangely enough, like in it's been 15 years now, I mostly listen to flamenco. And I try to go see a lot of contemporary dance, but I'm still mostly attracted to flamenco artists. And they're the ones who really influence me. And cinema. We see a lot of cinema with Eddie, from Fellini. Fellini would definitely be a big influence to more contemporary directors. I think it's more of a general influence of what we read and listen to, and I can't really pin and say, oh, this artist I really really love, and he really influences me, apart from somebody like Israel Galvan, who totally blows my mind. Yeah.
And another almost unfair question as you're about to embark on this show, but what is next? You hinted that you might be returning to simpler, bare-bones flamenco. Is that part of your plan?
I really don't know at this point, to be honest. But I do feel that we need to do something like really basic after this, because this show is completely crazy, and I feel I need, at least, even if it's not a production that that we move around a lot, but just for ourselves, maybe to go back to basics. I think we need that for a while.
How about you, Aurélie? What is your next step after this performance?
Well, I'm gonna see where the wind. I go with the wind, but I'm going back to Spain. I go every year, like 1 month. So I'm going back, and I'm continuing my baccalaureate at Concordia. I'm finishing this year. So after, I'll see with all the project, and if I continue to explore my expression as well as a choreographer, and if I can continue create my own expression while continuing working with Myriam.
Speaking of the show that you're working on, can you give us the details on where and when to see it?
We'll be at la Cinquième Salle of Place des Arts from the 16th to the 26th of January. And then we're going to Sherbrooke on the 5th of February. And to Toronto, 15 and 16 of February at Danceworks.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you.
That was an amazing interview. If you're still listening and if you've made it this far, we just have a few more minutes left, and we're going to talk about upcoming events and shows. JD, you had something you wanted to mention.
Yeah, the show at Théâtre La Chapelle, which was presented already last year in the past dance season. Je suis un autre by Catherine Godet, which stars her and Danny Desjardins, is being remounted at Théâtre La Chapelle on January 16th to the 18th. And I've heard so many good things about that show. I will be missing it because of obligations, but if you're interested in going to check it out, I strongly suggest it based on what I've read. It's supposed to be a fantastic show.
Awesome. And I would be neglecting my duties if I neglected to mention that Bouge DC starts next week. Bouge DC, of course, is an annual dance festival. We're going into our 4th year, and I say we because I am associated with the festival, full disclosure. And it's going to be taking place at Mainline Theatre, the entire festival. It starts on January 11th. Oh my goodness, that's this week. The festival launches this week on January 11th at 8 p.m. at Mainline Theatre. We're going to be presenting Sora, which is the Bouge DC runner-up for the Fringe Dance Award last year. And they're going to be presenting this beautiful, beautiful piece. It's 3 lovely ladies, very talented, including Emily Barret is running the troupe. And after that presentation, of course, we'll be hosting another dance party because that's what we do best. And then the following week will be filled with events like Dr. Sketchy. There's going to be a dance confabulation, which the theme will be second chances, as Bouge DC is a remount festival and a training festival, a mentoring festival. And the flagship show, of course, is the Common Space L'Espace Commun Showcase, which is where we've taken 6 or more applicants. This year there are 10 applicants with a work that they've previously shown, and we've had them redo the piece with the help of a mentor, with full production support, and they have this opportunity to kind of rework it, evolve it, bring it to a place that is really exciting and present it in this showcase. So that's going to be playing 5 times during the festival. It opens on Wednesday the 16th of January and closes on the Saturday with a matinee. And following that showcase is our Bouge DC Cabaret, which is an opportunity for festival organizers, for the mentors, and for past participants in the Common Space Showcase to show work. And of course, again, round that up with the dance party. Throughout the week, there are other events happening, such as workshops. There's a yoga workshop, a tap workshop. There's a capoeira workshop.
That I'm giving.
That's right.
That workshop, just for people who might be interested, will be happening on the Saturday, the 12th. It's from 5:30 to 7 p.m. and it will take place at Mainline Theatre. There is a maximum number of participants because it's a small space. So if you're interested, you can contact at rsvp@bougedc.com.
That's right.
To book a spot, and it's pay what you can. It's what I mean for the workshop is to be fun, inviting. So even if you don't have much movement experience or any capoeira experience, I'm going through the basics of capoeira. I'm not going to do a hard, really advanced workshop. It's really not the point. So if you're interested in discovering a fun new way of moving to Brazilian music, definitely come check it out.
For more information on the entire festival, look up Bouge DC on Facebook or go to bougedc.com. And tune in next week where we're going to have a bunch of the artists on to talk about the experience of going through the Common Space L'Espace Commun Showcase process of reworking a piece. Thanks for listening. We'll see y'all next week. Dirty Feet is recorded every week at the Montreal Improv Theatre. Check them out at montrealimprov.com.
Dirty Feet is produced and hosted by
Allison Burns,
JD Papillon,
Jen Doan, Joanie Farran,
and distributed by No More Radio.
You can find more about our show at nomoreradio.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Dirty Feet, and you can find us on Facebook at Dirty Feet Podcast.
Tune in next week for a whole new show.
Do you wanna